Hey fellas, today we're looking at the most uniquely terrifying fish in Earth's history. Let me take you back 280 million years ago to the Permian period of Earth's history, just before the dinosaurs. Those days, the Earth's surface was composed of two parts, the supercontinent Pangaea and its surrounding water, the Panthalassic Ocean. We're going to be diving into that ocean to look at one of paleontology's best kept secrets. Allow me to introduce you to Helicoprion. This shark-like fish has been found all around the world. Most skeletal remains of Helicoprion have been found in the Ural Mountains and Idaho of all places. But other areas with a claim to this ancient fish include Australia, Norway, Canada, Japan, and Mexico. It's well established in the paleontological community that Helicoprion's favorite pastime was doing giant 40,000-mile donuts around Pangaea. Now, we need to address the elephant in the room. This horrid-looking structure in Helicoprion's mouth is called a tooth whorl, and it's literally a spiral of deadly teeth. It's so distinct that it gave Helicoprion its common name, the buzz-toothed shark. Let me put into perspective exactly how terrifying the tooth whorl and Helicoprion were. Imagine you had a circular saw, and were of the opinion that great white sharks just aren't scary enough. So you hot glued the blade from the circular saw inside the great white shark's mouth, and then, just for good measure, you made the great white twice as large because why not? So yeah, Helicoprion was massive. Typical estimates for their size range from 5 meters, the size of a large great white shark, to 8 meters, the size of a basking shark. And in his 2022 book on vertebrate evolution, paleontologist Donald Prothero gave an estimate of 12 meters. You know, school buses? Yeah, full-size school buses are 12 meters long. If Helicoprion wanted you in its belly, you probably wouldn't even need to deal with its circular saw mouth. You would just slide right in. But now you ask, how could size estimates range from 5 to 12 meters? That's the difference between a minivan and a bus. And the answer opens up a whole can of worms. Everything that we know about Helicoprion comes from its tooth whorl. Everything. Using logic and assumption, paleontologists guessed their way to fishy success. But the history of the Helicoprion tooth whorl is a real mess. Nowadays, with lots of fossil specimens and the ability to recreate 3D renderings of the shark, it's mostly accepted that Helicoprion's tooth whorl lied inside its lower jaw and fit nicely into a cavity in its upper jaw. But back in the good old days, Helicoprion's tooth whorl was a total enigma. The first recorded Helicoprion tooth whorl was discovered in 1886 by ichthyologist Henry Woodward. As a bright fish biologist, Woodward was up to date on his prehistoric fish genera, so he assumed that the fossil belonged to the recently created genus Adestus. Adestus fish looked like this, so it isn't hard to see why Woodward would assume what he did. After finding the mysterious tooth whorl, Woodward named the new species Adestus davisi. Unfortunately for Woodward, the species he named and classified was moved to the genus Helicoprion, after Russian scientist Alexander Karpinski decided that the tooth whorl was just too fancy for the Adestus genus, and as one might expect, Woodward wasn't very pleased. But in the end, the scientific community sided with Karpinski. Unfortunately, though, the bonds of the Adestus genus weren't shaken after Karpinski's upheaval of the poor fish's classification. What does that mean? Well, this is what the Adestus fish looked like, and this is what Karpinski thought Helicoprion looked like. Yeah, he basically just extended the upper jaw into a huge spiral. So Karpinski wrote a 110-page paper analyzing Helicoprion's tooth whorl, and he concluded with a sketch showing the 30-foot apex predator with a spiral looping around its forehead. The scientific community was not pleased. Now don't be mistaken, they loved classifying Helicoprion as its own genus because it was so outlandish. But they hated that his 110-page paper concluded with this depiction of the ancient fish. The best known antagonist of Karpinski's drawing was Charles Eastman, a geologist and paleontologist specializing in fish. In 1900, Eastman was sent to jail awaiting trial for the murder of his brother-in-law. Shortly before being sent to jail, Eastman got a hold of Karpinski's publication on Helicoprion, and he hated Karpinski's sketch, although he liked the rest of the analysis. While in jail awaiting trial, Eastman published a review saying that Karpinski's sketch was highly fanciful and could not be taken seriously. Because he was so appalled by Karpinski's depiction of Helicoprion, Eastman proposed a new location for the tooth whorl. And he proposed to move it here. In the greatest scientific upset of the year 1900, Karpinski decided that Eastman was correct. In fact, he thought Eastman was so correct that this placement was proposed. Then, as far as I can tell, it seems like the scientific world mostly gave up on the Helicoprion for the next 50 years. During that time, Eastman was found not guilty for his brother-in-law's murder, although the circumstances were a bit suspicious, and eventually he and the other creators of the original Helicoprion descriptions passed away. Nobody wanted to touch the mess they made until a skull belonging to a similar species, Ornithoprion, was found in 1966. Because Ornithoprion and Helicoprion were close relatives during the Permian, scientists quickly realized that the Helicoprion tooth whorl was probably in the lower jaw, just like Ornithoprion. Even though it took 80 years to figure out what Helicoprion looked like, it's probably safe to say that we got it in the end. If Helicoprion was here today, I'm sure it would be proud. But that brings up one final question. What happened to Helicoprion? And why did it go extinct? The paleontologically inclined viewer may already have a guess. At the end of the Permian, the largest extinction event in Earth's history took place, causing the deaths of 95% of life on Earth. Shockingly though, the Helicoprion actually survived this mass extinction, and lived a bit into the Triassic before eventually dying out. Its extinction may have come from competition with the marine reptiles that were quickly taking over the oceans, but there isn't any better evidence beyond speculation. So, will we ever see an evolutionary resurgence of buzztooth sharks? Probably not. Nevertheless, the Helicoprion was a fearsome predator of the Permian, and its history is definitely a story worth telling. Alright fellas, get out of here.